All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Oh, thank you all. Thank you for the smattering of loveliness. I appreciate it on a Thursday in the USA. We come to you live for 2 hours on YouTube. You can listen to us as an audio podcast on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, on the Apple podcast platform. And we hope, however you take us in, that you'll join us for as much of the show as you possibly can. Big show today. Albert is here after
thank you.
Harrowing experience doing the show without me yesterday. Kim,
how are you?
Is here as well. Kim had to ride herd over the entire show yesterday. How did it go, Albert, yesterday? I didn't have a chance to debrief you on it.
I thought it went pretty well. I
Yeah.
thought it went pretty well, and I think Kim did a great job. I'm sure the chat agrees. The chat loves Kim.
Yeah. Well,
We got a lot of Kim.
There were problems with connections, is what I heard from Kim. Yeah.
I blame you.
It was my fault somehow, Kim felt.
Oh man, it's
But,
always rough when you're not here, but we make do.
I see. All right. Kim pretending that she cares that I wasn't here.
Kim, how are you?
I appreciate that. That's an important part of the job.
I blame you.
am,
I said Menafin, commonly known as Tylenol.
Take an acid and feel better. Today you will luxuriate and drink in two great guests.
What?
Yeah. I'm talking about Sarah Kendzior, everybody. The best-selling author, journalist, brilliant mind, joins us bottom of this first hour. And in hour two, one of the leading legal analysts in the English-speaking world, David Katz, joins us. Yeah, you know it. Serving up a terrific Thursday show. I will talk Mideast peace, or at least Gaza ceasefire and peace. Also, we'll talk about, in a moment, major arrest in the Palisades fire that has, I think it's changed Los Angeles forever. That's how completely sweeping the damage was as a result of that Palisades fire, and of course, the Eaton fire as well. But the Palisades fire and that wildfire probe that went on for months reached a crescendo with an arrest, and we'll talk about how they got the guy is kind of remarkable. The Antifa meeting, there was a big public, why have a meeting at the White House if it's not streamed to the public? Of course, everything there is, they may as well cast actors, because everybody there is like performing in some way or another, hitting their mark. I'll play you much of it. And look, I'm going to speak substantively about the Gaza peace deal because that's real, okay? And you can dump on Trump all you want, and you know I do, and we call Trump out, but I'm going to give the devil his due. If you can at least stop the fighting, actually produce a ceasefire, get humanitarian aid in other words, stop the bleeding in this instant, I'm going to give the administration credit for that. So if that's going to anger all of you, now be the time to dance out. However, I'm also going to point to how, as usual, it's a mission accomplished moment. It's a victory lap moment. It's where do I pick up my Nobel Peace Prize moment when the details of this deal are very much in doubt. But hostages released and returned, ceasefire, humanitarian aid, those are all serious, wonderful moments that await us, and I'm going to speak about them in that way because I think that's fair to the facts. This t-shirt, Mindy Lee is saying, great t-shirt. Mindy, you are a brilliant member of our audience to notice it. Project 1984 and a half is maybe my favorite. Oh, it's tough. We've got some real good ones for this moment in American history. And Project 1984 and a half, of course, is a reference to 1984, the George Orwell book. And I think there's a movie out about Orwell. It may be called Project. Kim, you can check it. There's a movie out now. In fact,
it's called Orwell. 2 + 2 = 5.
Thank you. 2 + 2.
Google it.
And that is a reference to 1984. And I believe that there are a lot of 1984 Orwellian things going on right now in America. Anyway, so we've got the mugs and the shirt that say Project 1984 and a half or 1984.5. Pick it up in your sizes. Find the size and the shirt that works for you. And it's just one of the many shirts we have. I don't know now if you could order and still get it by No King's Day, but No King's Day ain't going to be the last protest. And this is a great way to subtly resist, because sometimes you want stuff that's not in your face. Sometimes you want stuff that is in your face. We have both. Make love, not fascism. We've got the Peacefully Resist mug. I'm actually drinking the Coachella Valley coffee from a Peacefully Resist mug, the black ones, the white ones, and their T-shirts. Yeah, I love that. I just love how simple it is. I love the font. It's all designed by Courtney, which is really pretty cool. So anyway, it's getmarkmerch.com is where you can get a shirt just like me, just like mine. And I think you'll wear it in good health. Can we take a moment to praise Mark? I love that. Thank you, Mike and Willowgrant.
What?
Yeah, I know exactly. You know, I get so much blowback from I get people barely showing up for this show, my own people. I get nothing but blowback. And I mean, thank you, Mike and Willowglen, for a little gratitude. I had no gratitude from anybody. It's just unbelievable.
You know, they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Casey gets it. Casey gets it. No gratitude from my own staff.
You just don't get it.
You don't, guys. You don't get it. I need a little more of what Trump has. Did you watch this meeting at the White House? You know what Trump has? He's got, I don't want what that is, over the top. But
They are kissing my ass.
I want a little bit. What would it kill you guys?
Sorry,
Once in a while?
You've come to the wrong show if that's what you need.
It's unbelievable here.
We could try ignoring it,
It's
sir.
outrageous in my own show. I mean, I built.
Why are you yelling?
Thank you, Mike and Willowglen.
No.
All right. Look, I could continue like this. Maybe we'll do that another time.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It's real. The Mideast peace, as it's beginning to settle in, but there are a lot of details still to be worked out. I'll get to it in a moment. First, an arrest made in that massive fire and the subsequent probe of the Pacific Palisades fire in Southern California. Kim, can you give me the kind of the X's and O's of it? I guess he's a 29-year-old guy.
He's a 29-year-old Uber driver. Yeah, and apparently an image from ChatGPT was they used to scour images, and that's kind of how it touched off. But they had a couple of people that were in the Uber that said this guy was really aggressive right after the fire started, was really aggressive and odd. So yeah, he's arrested. And can you imagine killing 12 people in this Palisades fire? Horrible.
Yeah, I mean, look, they didn't just go around and try to vote. Was there an Uber driver who was kind of agitated? Because those, we're going to look at all the Uber drivers who are agitated. I mean, it's an interesting detail, and it's in a way it supports the overall narrative. But the thing they really did, I think, ATF, is they used phone data to pinpoint locations, and when they were able to do that and kind of recreate, and this is, ATF, what is that? Alcohol, tobacco, firearms. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They determined his whereabouts using GPS data, other relevant information. So this guy, Rinderknecht is his name. They looked at where he was in relation to the fire. So they must have looked at a lot of data at the time. They found other links between him and the fire on his phone. There were videos that he had taken of firefighters trying to put out the flames. The phone showed that he repeatedly called 911 just after midnight on New Year's Day. Remember, that's where the fire was. That's when the fire was set. And then it lay dormant, I guess, right, Kim, for almost a week.
Right. And then the Santa Ana winds came and whipped it up. It was still embers underground that were hot. And then it flares back up. Yep.
There was a screen recording of him trying to call emergency services, at one point being connected with a dispatcher. Mr. Rendernecht, as is noted here, also asked ChatGPT, are you at fault if a fire is lit because of your cigarettes? Investigators said that the suspect wanted to preserve evidence of himself trying to assist in the suppression of the fire, because obviously once this thing turned into this massive conflagration, he wanted to show, hey, I tried to stop it. He wanted to create evidence regarding a more innocent explanation for the cause of the fire. Investigators said that he appeared nervous during the interview that they had with him on the 24th of January. His carotid artery would pulsate whenever he was asked who started the fire.
Oh, wow.
In July of 2024, 5 months before he supposedly set this fire, he asked ChatGPT to create an image of a dystopian painting that included a burning forest and a crowd of people running away from a fire. So this guy is sick. His prompt of the AI included, quote, in the middle of the painting, hundreds of thousands of people in poverty are trying to get past a gigantic gate with a big dollar sign on it. On the other side of the gate and the entire wall is a conglomerate of the richest people. They are chilling, watching the world burn down and watching the people struggle. They are laughing, enjoying themselves, and dancing. Okay, this is a prompt he's giving to AI to generate an image like that. A month before allegedly setting the fire, Rendernecht allegedly inputted a prompt to ChatGPT that included the text, quote, I literally burnt the Bible that I had. It felt amazing. I felt so liberated. An outside review into the fire was commissioned by the LA County supervisors. It found that, quote, outdated policies for sending emergency alerts had delayed evacuation warnings, among other official failings. These are all things that are going on, at the same time that they're investigating the cause of the fire. And hours after his arrest, the after-action review report was released by LAFD, the fire department there in Southern California. It detailed the first 36 hours of their response and meant to identify lessons learned, found firefighters did not have enough resources for the red flag, weather conditions, the hurricane-force winds that fueled the fire. They listed nearly 100 challenges that firefighters faced during that fire. That fire burned for 25 days, the Palisades, forced many fire responders to work for 36 to 48 hours straight. Dry vegetation, unrelenting and unusual wind activity, significant ember cast, a landscape packed with combustible vegetation, large vulnerable structures, diminishing water supply, loss of aerial suppression support because of the winds, of course. Those are all the things that put together the perfect storm that led to all of this. But the fire had to be set.
This might be, I don't know, the most damning piece of evidence against him, but they interviewed the suspect. And according to investigators, he told them, Rendernecht told them where the fire started. And that was information at the time on January 24th that hadn't been made public yet. And they say he would not have known where the fire started if he hadn't witnessed it start.
Wow. Yeah, there you go. Again, as Kim mentioned, 23,000 acres caused about $150 billion in damage. Whole neighborhoods wiped out. Topanga, Malibu, Palisades. If you were a celebrity, you weren't spared. Jeff Bridges lost his house. Paris Hilton lost her house. Mel Gibson lost his house. And Rendernecht arrested in Florida, charged with destruction of property by means of fire. And officials say murder charges could follow. Hasn't entered a plea yet, but
7,000 homes and businesses gone.
brutal.
12,
And then, of
12
course,
people dead.
just part of the Southern California story, right? Because the Eaton fire, which is Altadena, that wiped out an entire community as well. The causes of that seem related to the power company, but we will continue to see those reports come forward, and their lawsuits, of course, being launched and were launched and have been launched for some time now. But that's a huge, huge development in Southern California with the arrest of that arsonist.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I will get to comments today, and then I'll get to what's happening in Gaza with the Gaza Peace Accord. I guess there's a let me just look to see what we've got. First into the comments today, very first was Tammy, then Rhonda made it in, and Peter as well. And everybody had that enthusiasm. For the record, what does it say? I thought it was for the record, Tammy was number 1 in the chat, says Rhonda. Isn't that nice? See how generous that is, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. Albert, Kim, see how generosity works? Be nice.
Some exciting news in the chat as well.
I'm going to be distracted today. My daughter is in active labor, says CBD. It is her first and my first. Wow, that is really, really cool. Man, that's got to be super exciting, huh?
Big shout out.
Big shout out. Exactly. Wow. Keep us posted on that. Let us behave, Mark, or else Mama Kim will put us in timeout in the corner with a sign, I blame you. Exactly. Well, I know that.
I blame you.
I know she'll blame me no matter what happened. And I know that everybody in the chat and everybody on this channel will take her side. Kim can do no wrong. CBD just became a grandma, everybody. Yay, CBD, says Richard Delamater. Yeah, it's a very exciting day. CBD. Stand back, here it comes, says Linda. Yeah, thank you for the $5 super chat. Mark, we are close to seeing the files. It must mean the Epstein files. It may be. I think we're never going to see the Epstein files. We can talk to Sarah about that. She's written extensively on it. In fact, many of her publications, or I say many, I can think of 2 that lay out quite specifically Jeffrey Epstein, his international network of human trafficking, the international network of money laundering, and the way in which it encompasses so many people on both sides of the aisle, and the wealthiest, most powerful people, men, in the world, to the point that you just are never going to see the files. When you see what happened to Patel and Bondi and Bongino, those 3 guys, they just couldn't stop talking about, release the files. FBI has them. They're right there. Now they run the FBI. And they go, oh, gosh, there are just no files. I thought there were, but I mean, it's just.
Why are you yelling?
I just think that you see on full display while not seeing what must be in the Epstein files. So that doesn't mean the pressure won't come, and it doesn't mean that there won't be more scandal, and it doesn't even mean that there won't be leaks of or bits of information out. And even the stuff that's out there publicly available is pretty damning. But a full release of the files, no, you'll never see it. That's my opinion. I mean, Sarah may disagree, maybe with sufficient I don't think, as I say, you got all the people, controlling the levers of power who wanted them released, and they're not releasing them. So,
well, it's like apparently they're scared because they haven't even sworn in Grijalva yet.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. They don't want to go on record as voting against the release, which they'd have to do. Now that Maxwell's appeals are over, they need to release them, says Penny. Well, you can say that, but the reality is her appeal, in a way, is ongoing because she's really appealing to the President of the United States, who the other day said, while feigning that he didn't even really, I haven't heard that name in a long time. Gosh, yeah, I suppose I'll look at her case. You look at her case? She's a convicted sex trafficker. She groomed young women to be trafficked all over the world. You're going to look at her case? Look at her case for what? You're going to give her clemency? You're going to issue a pardon?
It's funny. He acted like he hadn't even heard her name.
Yeah.
Before. Yeah.
I thought he was quasi-convincing, were it not for the fact that, we know you had her on speed dial. So Anyway, that's we can ask Sarah though. Sarah knows a lot about the Epstein thing. When she gets here, we'll talk to her about that. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash the like button if you would. Welcome to the show. I do want to mention, as I said, there's a Gaza ceasefire deal, and it looks real. I think the reality is, and I'm no fan of Donald Trump particularly, but I also, I'll give the devil his due. I do think he leveraged a lot of personal relationships here, both with the Arab world and with Netanyahu, and they're able to somehow jujitsu this deal. Now, the key components of the deal that we know about that are important are cessation of hostilities, right? Ceasefire, which everybody was angling for quite some time. The release of the remaining hostages that Hamas has, and of course humanitarian relief. Those are the three things that strike me as important. The thing that's left out among the many things that are left out, the Hamas disarmament, which is key, Hamas's future, which seems questionable given the fact that they've sort of been obliterated by the Israelis, the governance of Gaza, the rebuilding of Gaza, the future of the Palestinian people. These are all things that are super important, critical aspects of any future, and yet it's left out of the equation. Now, again, to be kind about this and to be giving credit, I think, you just want the bleeding to stop. You don't have to have every detail locked in, but to have a lasting peace, you have to have some kind of filling in of these things that I've just mentioned. So, I mean, this is the first phase of the peace plan as announced by Donald Trump, and I think Donald Trump loves announcing things. He loves claiming credit for things that are good. This is obviously a good thing. He wants that Nobel Peace Prize, right? And so, again, he's announced it. He thanked Qatar and Egypt and Turkey, and he announced a lot of this on Truth Social. But I do think that the lasting peace has to address many of these issues that I described. The governance of Gaza is something that has always been an issue. And the future of Hamas has always been an issue. And the two things overlap because, as you know, Hamas really ruled Gaza with an iron fist. The Palestinian Authority, which existed prior to Hamas, and concurrently, I mean, there was a Palestinian Authority there in Gaza, but they were rendered useless by Hamas, completely intimidated, owned by Hamas, in effect. Might they rise again, occupied by those who the Israelis can trust to maintain a peace? What might be an occupying peacekeeping force? In other words, what countries might be signatories to that? It would appear that you do have a will to do something along those lines. The Jordanians, the Qataris, the Saudis. But this all has to wash with the Israelis. They have to have confidence that there'll be a peace there. And you have to be confident that Netanyahu won't reignite hostilities once he gets the hostages back. So this is exciting, and I think it's wonderful in many ways, but it leaves as many questions on the table as it answers in a way, in terms of a lasting peace moving forward. So that's, if you will, a bit of what I see when it comes to this peace. Didn't we have was it a general, a former general who knows the region pretty well? I think he served in the Clinton administration. Here's just a few seconds of his thoughts on moving forward with the peace.
Disarming, of leaving the zone, of finding a technocratic government that would emerge from what the West Bank and Gaza seemed pretty remote in the near term. What could be a vital change in the landscape is if they could create a peacekeeping force to occupy the Gaza zone, perhaps even the West Bank also. It would be difficult for the Israelis to accept that. But one could imagine that with Saudi money and Egyptian or Jordanian manpower, Turkey, Qatar, it's possible to get a neutral peacekeeping force perhaps in the coming months. But focus on the ceasefire, the end of the immediate suffering, and massive input of humanitarian aid, medical, food, water, some shelter into Gaza to relieve the suffering there.
Yeah,
General
so there you go.
Barry
That's
McCaffrey
a bit
and
of
David
what
Rock.
I was saying with a few more details perhaps laid in. The Nobel Committee will announce the Nobel Award at 2 a.m. Friday morning. I know that's just a coincidence, says Ted Flores. Thank you for the chat. Yeah, how can you get the Nobel Peace Prize when you're attacking your own country? Yeah, well, he'll get it for being a peacekeeper in the Middle East with Gaza. And yeah, right, it's offset a bit from opening fire, if you will, on your own people, which is exactly what's happening in America's cities. I want to talk to Sarah Kendzior about that in a moment. But anyway, those are the broad strokes, and honestly, it's a broad stroke deal right now. But again, you've got cessation of hostilities, which I think is significant, and you've got return of the hostages, also significant, and you've got humanitarian relief. Those three things are all of great significance, but all the other things related to governance and lasting peace, that's all been left out. So this is a to be continued, I think. Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I do want to mention I am having Coachella Valley coffee. You know, I think that the Coachella Valley coffee that I'm drinking is the same coffee that you can order, and they are, it is dreamy. From my Peacefully Resist mug, which I have to send to Sarah Kendzior. I want her to have, you know, she's under no obligation to use it, of course, but I just feel like she's now getting to be someone who we need to hook up a little bit with the coffee and the mug. Anyway, the coffee, as you know, sourced from all women farms and businesses, given seed money to build a business, and they do all over the world. This is organic coffee and tea, and they have spices as well. And everything you order, anything you order, 10% off with our discount code MarkT at checkout, 10% off. And again, I'm rocking a couple of cups right now, so I'm feeling it, is all I'm saying. It's CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, MarkT at checkout for 10% off. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
She's a best-selling author. Her Substack is terrific, but her writings are just wonderful. You could almost crack any of Sarah Kendzior's books and go for the ride. Of course, A View from Flyover Country, I believe that was her first, Hiding in Plain Sight. They Knew, The Last American Road Trip. She's just wonderful, and it's such a luxury to have her join us regularly. Sarah Kendzior, everybody. Hello, hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well, and so glad that you are here. You know, I was watching the cabinet meeting this morning that Donald Trump was having with all of his, and he has it in public, you know, he has everything streaming just like a third world dictator would. And it made me realize just how nothing gets done, it would seem, in this administration without the peacocking and without the sort of preamble that's associated with kissing up to the dictator. It's a remarkable thing. And I wanted to show you, because I wanted to have a conversation with you about what's happening in America's cities. Portland, of course, and Chicago are on the griddle right now. I wanted to show you a little bit of what Bondi was saying. Albert, do you have the Antifa meeting? They've elevated Antifa to this place that is, and you can tell me, it just seems to me this Antifa, which has to be like, I think it's really a fraction of a fraction, isn't it, Sarah? It's not I don't think it's a real thing along the lines of like what even the Proud Boys are, for example, you know?
I don't think Antifa's real, period. I mean, I don't think it exists. It's just a term that they came up with. They did this in 2020 to apply to any kind of dissident or activist. It's just loose, broad label on purpose so that they could put anybody they don't like under it and accuse them of terrorism or other crimes.
And that's exactly what's happening. So the Antifa, by the way, is Sarah's, Albert, what is that? Her audio sounds a little distant. Is that her? There's the.
Might be on your end, Sarah. If you could, I'm trying to adjust your levels as you're talking, but
that's just a source thing. You have to.
Her source, yeah, your microphone source.
Microphone source or headphones or whatever. However you're speaking, here you got to do.
I'm gonna try something. Can I try something live? Tell me if this works. Is this better?
No, it's the same. What is that, Albert? Is that is?
Hello now.
Where's our tech support person, Albert? You're supposed to be tech support.
If you go to the settings at the bottom and you check your audio.
Yeah, in StreamYard, there's settings there. You see the.
Yeah, I'm in it.
It sounds a little better.
The audio. What do you have to? It does. It sounds the same to me.
Should I try different microphone?
There
what?
When you click your microphone options.
There's 4 options.
What do you think?
I tried 2 of them.
Okay.
I'm gonna try. Is this any better?
No, it's weird.
The one before I think was better.
Was it? Okay.
Default. So.
Oh wait, that sounded pretty good. What was that?
It just needs to be really loud. I'll just talk really loud.
Yeah, just talk really loud. I'll take it like this. It's cool, but I just
very loud.
So we'll cut all this stuff out for the video. So the Antifa meeting, which was, really billed as such, Donald Trump and his people, I'm talking about Noam, who runs this massive organization that's just been supercharged, Department of Homeland Security, Pam Bondi, they're all there, and they're talking about Antifa and the threat of Antifa and how they're turning and Kash Patel was there, going to turn the FBI loose on Antifa, and then this handful of independent journalists, right-wing journalists, they put there at the table with them. Listen to the preamble, which is associated with kissing up to the president, and then the jihad that they're going to go ahead. Here it is. This is Pam Bondi.
Thugs who did this to him. Antifa feels empowered to operate in the open because weak Democrats have turned a blind eye to their actions. Their hatred for President Trump and for law and order agendas fuels their violence. We've seen more than 1,000% increase in attacks against our ICE agents since January 20th. Secretary Noam is out there fighting for you firsthand to keep our federal officers safe, to keep our federal buildings safe, and we're not going to have it anymore, these thugs. We saw what's happening in Portland and Chicago, and you saw what happened in Dallas. No longer. This is not activism, it's anarchy. We can't and we will not let masked terrorists burn our buildings, attack our law enforcement, and intimidate our communities.
So, okay, I've seen enough. It's funny to me because masked terrorists, exactly what we have from the government, pouring out of vans and grabbing Americans and those who they suspect are not here legitimately. Go ahead, Sarah. Albert, why don't I hear her?
Hold on.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, they're trying to invert what they're doing. They're trying to play down the threat of ICE, which people can see clearly from videos posted by residents of these cities. And what he's also trying to do is inflame civil war. There's been a lot of talk in recent weeks of, Texas is invading Illinois or all these other sort of, red versus blue kind of dichotomies. He's trying to encourage Americans to attack each other, whether it's the, Americans who have been recruited, from the National Guard to attack fellow Americans, in other cities, or, whether it's through this kind of inorganic creation of a fake broad terrorist, group, alleged terrorist group, called, under the name of Antifa, that they can use as a pretext to just target whoever is getting in their way politically.
Yeah, that last point is such a critical one. I think it's being used as an umbrella to target any dissent. And that's just a frightening thing. Give me a little Christine Noam, if you would, please, Albert. This is later in that same meeting that went on for a couple of hours that was to address the Antifa threat. Go ahead. Or this might have been one of the influencers. They had, journalists or influencers there. Anyway, go ahead. It's all of the same kind.
Together, and the fact that we are here today and on such short notice shows how serious you guys are taking this issue of trans terrorists and frankly, the cities and police departments that are cooperating with Antifa, such as Portland. I mean, the Portland politicians are literally willing to sacrifice their own citizens just to appease these Antifa terrorists.
Okay,
it's
thank
sickening.
you. I just see like the rhetoric is so supercharged. It's so overheated, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, especially for a group that doesn't exist. And they have decided to seize on this as their group. They did this before with Black Lives Matter. They did it with Occupy Wall Street. They really tried to play up Antifa before January 6th, I think in the hope that, progressive folks would be dumb enough to try to actually start some sort of riot at the Capitol that would be a battle between Trump's backers and them. But people, they saw through this, they didn't fall through it, and they didn't show up. And so they're trying to do that again. Only it's really a propaganda battle. That's why they've relied on AI. That's why they've relied on photos of images like, the Rodney King era riots in LA, pretending that those are Portland. It's very, very easy for them to fake a image of Portland. I remember during, the Ferguson events in St. Louis, cable media loved to show these films of one burning block, and then they would pretend that the entire city of St. Louis was on fire. But they had to use actual film, actual places. Now people can just type into, ChatGPT or what have you, and just create a city on fire and then tell the public that that is actually happening. And thankfully, people from Portland are able to debunk this. But not everybody, sees that. Not everybody wants to believe the truth. And Trump, as a reality TV dictator, is very effective at using that to his advantage.
Yeah, I love that you use the word propaganda, because it is a propaganda battle, and increasing in this media landscape, the propaganda battle sort of echoes for hours and hours, days and days, exists on all these different platforms. But in Portland, there's a real price being paid. Albert, give me a little bit of I wanted Sarah to see, and for everyone to see, some of the residents of Portland and business owners of Portland who, they pay a real price for this performative theater. Go ahead.
National Guard to quell opposition to ICE activity in blue cities.
Portland is on fire. Portland's been on fire for years.
A Trump-appointed federal judge granted a temporary restraining order, blocking the troops from being sent to Oregon. Business owners have submitted legal declarations of support, saying the rhetoric has been damaging. Diners here felt it too. Is Portland a war zone?
No, it's not Portlanders. It's not who Portland is, and it's not the 99.9% of who's out there.
We definitely have an image problem, but I feel like Goliath is coming after David. We're a little city here just trying to get by, trying to sort out our problems, and we don't need the big cheese to come here.
So you think Portland was recovering and this kind of throws cold water on that?
We are definitely in a state of recovery. We are not there.
The Portland Police Bureau found crime here is down 19% over a 2-year period.
Shame.
But as the protests play out on the national stage, Schroeder says she's losing money. You've been put through the ringer these last few years.
And this does not help. It does not help at all. We don't need this.
Yeah, my heart breaks for these business people, Sarah, because they've been through COVID, and now they're with the Mad King, who is creating a narrative that's completely fictitious.
Yeah, and no, it's awful to see. It's not something any city or any small town deserves. And so I just want to say one thing about whoever the narrator was for that news clip where they describe Portland as a, quote, blue city. There is no such thing as a, quote, blue city, blue state. I can't stand these kind of designations because every place is a mix of people. And there's been this narrative going around that somehow places that are under Republican rule are immune from ICE invasions, are immune from the repressive measures of the Trump administration. And I'm telling you, as someone living in Missouri, that's not true at all. And not just a city like mine, a city like St. Louis, which, is overwhelmingly, Democratic, and the type of city that Trump doesn't like, but little towns all over Missouri where ICE comes in and you've got people, in their churches protecting their local citizens. And this happened in his first term. This happens every time. And this is happening in every state. It's happening in, little towns and rural areas and urban areas. We are all facing this threat of masked men who will jump out, grab you, grab children. They don't care about anything you've actually did. They don't care about respecting your constitutional rights. This is not an issue of one state versus another or red state versus blue. This is an abusive federal government attacking all Americans and all people living in this country. And nobody is immune from this kind of attack. So my sympathies go out to Portland. But, I guess one more thing to add is I don't think Portland needs to prove it's a, quote, nice city, that it's aesthetically pleasing, that it's sweet, that it's quirky. None of those qualities matter. And I'm not just saying that because I live in an impoverished, violent hellhole hit by a tornado. A hellhole place, full of some of the kindest, nicest, coolest people that I know. But I do worry that, cities like Portland may be protected a little more in the public eye. And when they come for the grittier, more low down places, we may not get it, because what his strategy is. They're going after the rich cities. That's why they went after LA, Chicago, DC, and now they're, San Francisco. Now they're coming for Portland, St. Louis, Cleveland, Jackson, Mississippi, etc. We're going to be further down the line in terms of direct targeting, in terms of emphasis, but we are facing these same problems too. So it's important that we all support each other.
And so the long game on this, Sarah, this is setting a foundation for what?
Well, there's two things. I think he wants to drain these cities of their wealth. This is, again, why I think he's targeting wealthy places first. He wants people to pack up and move. And it's not just Trump. It's this whole team of Republican ideologues. He wants them to leave the country. He wants their money to leave the country. He wants people to be afraid to donate to activist organizations because they'll be labeled Antifa, and then they'll be designated a terrorist, and they might have their bank, frozen or not be able to get a job, or all sorts of things. He's trying to create a climate of fear. But he's also trying to stoke civil war. They have been doing this for 25 years, ever since the 2000 election, where we had these contrived categories of red versus blue in terms of state boundaries. We don't have a natural designation. This is not the former Soviet Union, where it was composed of republics, that spoke different languages, had different cultures, and were forced against their will to fuse into this union. And then when it collapsed, they split up along those lines. We do not have anything that is that natural. This is a country of, many diverse ideologies, demographies, etc. They are trying to create these kind of cohesive identities that will then war with each other. And what they want most of all is for us to fight each other so that they don't have to spend the money battling us. It is a lot cheaper if we do it ourselves. And what do they want to do this for? They want resources. They want control. They want new mechanisms of government, often connected to, digital surveillance, to companies like Palantir that want to surveil the populace and, again, deprive us of our rights. I think they want a more depopulated U.S. They want a whiter U.S. It's all very much against, the ideal of what it is to be in America. And they're trying to create something. I would not say it's unrecognizable, because this country has very dark roots, and often their methods are to exploit the flaws of our country that are already there in terms of racism, in terms of xenophobia. But what they want is, I think, unprecedented because of this digital surveillance component and their ability to use things like AI, to create propaganda or for military endeavors. It's extremely disheartening, to say the least.
Yeah, the technology that you mentioned really does create an effectiveness beyond just the propaganda. So you can talk red-blue, and you can create this red-blue narrative that you suggest doesn't really reflect kind of the plurality of opinion that we all have, even within ourselves. We could be, I'm a tree hugger, but also believe in law and order type thing. I mean, it's none of these labels quite fit, but you're so right. The minute you target a group and you marry it with a technology that's able to follow that group and target it, literally geolocate, you end up with a really dark future.
Yeah, you end up with a climate of fear that we already see. We already have self-censorship. I mean, we have self-censorship because we've seen the repercussions for journalists, for example, who do investigate the Trump administration, and then they lose their jobs as one publication after another folds, and gives into the administration's demands. The same with educational institutions. You see some of them fold, and then you see professors get fired. And so people watch this. Those are supposed to be examples for the rest of the country to learn from. And what people are starting to learn is to self-censor. And I've always thought that, the US was distinct from other proto-authoritarian regimes because we do have this very long tradition of free speech and free media, even more free in many ways than countries like the UK that have these very strict libel laws that can inhibit free speech. That is beginning to go away, I think, in part because speech is now in a digital domain. It is in a privatized public sphere. So you have these oligarchs like Elon Musk, or Mark Zuckerberg or others controlling the places where we have our speech, monitoring our speech, and then perhaps, belatedly using our speech to accuse us of either committing a crime or backing a so-called criminal organization that in reality does not exist. And I've seen these exact same tactics used, in Hungary, in Russia. 20 years ago, I wrote a paper about this in Uzbekistan, about a group that the government invented called Acromia. It did not exist. And they accused Acromia of committing a crime severe enough that it justified the Uzbek government killing over 700 protesters that were out there. That happened in May of 2005. And I remember thinking, how horrific this was. And then, of course, I got banned from Uzbekistan because I wrote about it. That paper now is relevant, to what is happening in my own country, with Antifa. It's the exact same ideology. And it's so shameful that so many people are falling for it. It's nonsense. And there's a special twist, of course, because, Antifa is, anti-fascist, which for all of my life, all of American history, really, from the 1940s onward, was thought of as a good thing. The villains in every movie were the fascists. Like, if you read a book, which I encourage books to do, a historical book, the fascism is bad. Fascism is repressive. We do not want to have fascism. And now being against fascism is something that they want to criminalize, and they have no qualms about that. So anybody who doesn't think that that's the road that, they're purposely trying to lead us on is sorely delusional. They really should have learned that after the first term, but I think they're making it crystal clear now.
Yeah, boy, that Uzbeki paper, and I know you studied these Eastern Bloc type fascistic regimes at length and deeply. It's chilling. And now to something that Trump said at one of these meetings. You have the ABC, NBC thing when he said, I'm going to go after ABC's already caved, NBC could be next, CBS learned its lesson, now it's under new ownership. And go ahead, Albert, play a little bit of that, please.
Criminals we can see in the streets. Fighting crime is more than just getting the bad guy off the streets. It's breaking down the organization brick.
No, that wasn't it. Yeah. He literally called out the networks. Sorry?
President Trump.
I'll get the right clip. Sorry, I played the wrong one.
Okay, no sweat. But he literally called the network. And as he did, I thought of Orban is what I was really thinking of. And Hungary, kind of the soft, creeping fascism, These guys, I would say they're creeping less softly than even Orban did in Hungary. But you're the real student of this stuff.
No, I think it's true. I think what people have missed is that there wasn't some sort of break between Trump's first term and his second. That Biden presidency helped streamline the policies that we have now. They funded ICE. ICE got more militaristic, more brutal. They built cop cities. They didn't prosecute Trump. They didn't hold any of this original crime cult accountable. They saw Project 2025. They came up with absolutely no plan to curtail it. So we really have had 10 years of this fascist plan. And then, of course, before that, you could really trace it to the Reagan era. And you could, of course, trace predecessors back to the fascist movements of the 1930s, the 1940s. It has been a long time. There were many, many off-ramps to this disaster, and folks just didn't take them. But I think people, they feel like it's come upon us very quickly because Trump just returned to office in January. But in reality, it's been a 10-year, degradation and erosion of what were already corrupt institutions that were breaking down well before Trump came into office the first time. And then, they exploited that, and then they accelerated it, and they've moved it along. But I do think that we have been mirroring the path of Hungary. I also think the UK, which is a country people often, don't associate with authoritarianism, they've been going down a very similar road to us ever since Brexit. A lot of these countries moved in tandem starting around 2015, 2016. I think the global financial collapse of 2008 helped create a lot of the vulnerabilities, these austerity politics that made people more prone to accept, bigotry, authoritarian initiatives. It made institutions weak. It led to a redistribution of wealth, not just, so that the people most on the top got, almost all the money, and the rest of us were left with very little, but a geographical distribution, where cities like mine, St. Louis, were left far behind, while places like New York and San Francisco became gentrified. It became so unaffordable that they do have these problems of homelessness, and they do have a rise in crime because people are trying to steal basic things that they need for survival. You see people stealing diapers, you see people stealing, cans of food. Like, this isn't necessarily some sort of nefarious criminal operatives. Like, these are people that are deeply struggling and that have been betrayed, I think, by their leaders, who don't have sympathy for their plight, but instead use it, to make little propaganda videos of themselves. Gavin Newsom is somebody that comes to mind in this regard.
Yeah, you write at length about how the seeds were planted and the degrading of these institutions has happened over decades, and then this just is the crescendo. But boy, it does feel like a cold slap in the face. Here is Trump talking about getting the networks to behave.
Cover this kind of things. It's very dishonest what's going on there. I think the press is a big factor. Please go ahead. Thank you, James.
Mr. President, thank you so much for having us all here to bring attention to this matter. You did mention
activists. And finally, I just wanted to say that all of our resources at
but they're not going to cover it anyway. The problem we have is that this is a very important meeting, but you'll see very little press about it. These are major statements being made by major people, including the people right here, and you're not going to see too much about it. They don't like to cover this kind of thing. So it's very dishonest what's going on there. I think the press is a big factor. Please.
Anyway, he actually calls him out by name. Of course, he does that MSDNC thing, and he does the, the kind of the nicknames for all of them. But even just him calling out the press there, you realize that on his hit list and on this administration's hit list is the press, is the media. We've already seen it. We saw the forcing of the Colbert cancellation. You could, the 60 Minutes deal. I mean, he's really brought CBS, he's curbed that dog. He got ABC with that nuisance suit, but they, I'm sure, are more circumspect about everything they say about the administration. And so you sort of suggested it earlier in the conversation when you said the self-censoring of these press outlets is something that we're seeing because they don't want to run afoul of what regulatory structure could be brought to bear on them by this government.
Yeah, and Trump has been very blatant about this because the first term was dedicated towards the consolidation of power. And he saw consolidation of power as something he would achieve through packing the courts. That is what, his mentor, Roy Cohn, always did. You'd say it doesn't matter what the law is, it matters who the judge is. And so Trump went to great pains to make sure the Supreme Court was packed and that they would grant him permanent immunity from any crime, no matter what that is. And so when he returned, he did not need the media to work in the same way as he did in the first term. The first term was really a tactic that he's always used, which is to cover up serious crime with scandal. He would rather have people, thinking that he's a moron, talking about how he tweeted Kofefe or, like silly things like that, even thinking he's a bigot, thinking he's a bully, as long as it's not illegal, as long as it's not something that he could actually face legal repercussions for. Now he can't face legal repercussions, so he's out for revenge, and he would like to make sure that, you know, the media does his bidding. He would like to flaunt his power. I don't think he actually feels threatened by any of these people. I don't think he sees Stephen Colbert or Jimmy Kimmel or whoever as a threat. He's just doing this for fun. I think his advisors are also doing it for fun, and they're doing it again, you know, just to set an example. It's like, okay, well, if Jimmy Kimmel, you know, doesn't have this power or what have you, like, what does that mean for the rest of us? What does that mean for a young independent journalist who doesn't have the financial resources of an institution? I mean, I actually, you know, happen to think that the institution is the problem. You know, we've seen a lot of top-down censorship. We've heard from a lot of journalists at places like the Washington Post, you know, who struggled to get stories out or write what they honestly believe, only to be censored from inside because of these takeovers of these outlets by institutions. But yeah, it is pathetic, you know, to see the bowing down by, you know, certain journalists towards Trump, and it's pathetic to see Trump, who's very much a creature of 20th century media, so obsessed with a lot of media that really is kind of out of date. You know, he's playing towards a much older audience, and I'm more interested in kind of like what younger folks are watching, especially with the generations who have grown up really knowing only Trump, only social media, and unfortunately now knowing only AI as a normal way of gathering information and knowledge, how they're going to interpret all of this and how that's going to affect the next decade or so in terms of forming a meaningful opposition to these sorts of repressive policies.
Yeah, you know, you're as an educator and even as a mother of kids who've grown up in you know, in this era that you're describing, you have a window on this stuff that maybe some of us older boys and girls may not have. Let me ask you about the government shutdown quickly, because there are real costs being borne by this. It's only once in a while that a moment lives where one of these guys actually gets called out on it publicly. Do you have the Mike Johnson thing? I wanted to play that for Sarah Albert, if you wouldn't mind. Johnson was on a C-SPAN show, and he actually gets called out by a woman whose husband is a veteran and has veteran services that they depend on, and government money and supplements that they count on for medicines, etc. She kind of lays the case bare for him. It's a little quick clip. Here you go.
I'm sure you can tell by my voice I'm very shaky. Just want you to hear a little bit about my family. I have 2 medically fragile children. I have a husband who actively serves this country. He suffers from PTSD from his 2 tours in Afghanistan. If we see a lapse in pay come the 15th, my children do not get to get the medication that's needed for them to live their life, because we live paycheck to paycheck. I heard you earlier say that you side with President Trump on anything that he says. Well, I just read an article this morning that said he absolutely wholeheartedly believes that there needs to be legislation put in so that we do not miss a paycheck. You have the power to do that. And as a Republican, I'm very disappointed in my party, and I'm very disappointed in you, because you do have the power to call the House back. You did that, or you refused to do that just for a show. I am begging you to pass this legislation. My kids could die. We don't have the credit because of the medical bills that I have to pay regularly. You could stop this, and you could be the one that could say military's getting paid.
Samantha, I'm so sorry to hear about your situation. The reason I've been so angry this week, and they've been calling me out on media, Johnson's angry. I am angry because of situations just like yours. The Republicans are the ones delivering for you. We had a vote to pay the troops. It was the continuing resolution 3 weeks ago. Every single Republican but 2 voted to keep the government open so that your paycheck can flow. Every Democrat in the House, except for 1, voted to close it. The Democrats are the ones that are preventing you from getting a check. If we did another a vote on the floor, pay troops, it's not a lawmaking exercise, because Chuck Schumer is going to hold that up in the Senate.
Okay. Thoughts?
I mean, it's just such a I don't know how much censorship he's not a good person, and I'm very tired of these literal life or death situations being used as just, this is the Democrats' fault, this is the Republicans' fault. She's telling him that, her children might die, and that's his reaction. And, the Democrats often have the same thing where they just kind of spin it around and they ignore the fact that regardless whose fault it is, her children are in danger of dying. People are in danger of, not getting food, not getting medicine, like the longer that this goes on. And so it is very frustrating. And, one thing that really scares me about this shutdown, and it also scared me back in 2018, 2019, when the government shut down under Trump, is that I've never felt that the Trump administration cares whether the government comes back. Because unlike other administrations, their goal is to dismantle the government. It's to dismantle agencies that we need, privatize them, make it impossible for people to afford basic things, take things like our national parks and destroy them. He's already announced, a drilling program in Alaska, through one of the national parks. They want to take advantage of this shutdown and perhaps prolong it. And meanwhile, women like that are going to suffer. We're all going to suffer. And that frightens me. It's a kind of a no-win situation in terms of the vote, because I think in some ways voting to end the shutdown might be the better move, because the terrible parts of the government, like say ICE, are continuing to operate, despite the fact that there's a shutdown. So what really are we losing here? We're losing healthcare and other things that people need.
Yeah, you anticipated my question, which was, well, then what do you vote? Do you vote to open, or it's damned both ways. Quickly, I get a lot of questions every time you come on about Epstein and the Epstein files. I'm seeing a lot today on Epstein files are a heartbeat away from being released. I believe they'll never be released. I base some of that on what I've read from you, just it's all encompassing, this international human trafficking, money laundering operation, blackmail operation. But what do you think with the votes sufficient to force a vote? Will we ever see daylight on Epstein?
So we might see some. First of all, I don't think they're files. I think some of them are video. I also think a good kind of litmus test of whether somebody is sincerely interested in getting in the bottom of this is whether they're willing to talk about Robert Maxwell, who was Ghislaine Maxwell's father. He was a mafia associate. He was a criminal. He was a British publishing magnate. And he was also an operative for the state of Israel who was given an incredibly lavish funeral after his mysterious death in 1991 when he, quote, fell off a yacht. The last person to see him alive was Anthony Blinken's stepfather, who raised Anthony Blinken. So there's that. There's the fact that a lot of people close to Epstein have been put into positions of very high power in the last 3 administrations. And this includes Bill Barr, Alex Acosta, Anthony Blinken, Howard Lutnick, who was Jeffrey Epstein's next door neighbor. It's hard for me to believe that these administrations and this Congress are going to want all of this information to come out when it implicates people in the cabinets, implicates their donors, implicates the most powerful people in the world. I think it should come out. There's certainly plenty that they've got files on since he was indicted multiple times, as was Maxwell. But I think now they're using it in kind of the same way, like when you showed that Mike Johnson clip and he just flipped this woman's actual pain around to make a partisan point. They are doing that now with the victims of Epstein and Maxwell. They're just pointing fingers at each party and using this as kind of a trope or a ploy instead of acknowledging that, children were raped. Children were trafficked. This is very serious. This is also an espionage and blackmail operation that needs to be investigated as a matter of national security. But instead, they're just making little quotes, little memes, treating it like a game. I would like to see more rigorous investigation of it, and I don't care who brings it forward. It would be appreciated. It's already been done by, some journalists, but it's a great way to get censored in this country, as I have learned, is to investigate Epstein and Maxwell, and particularly the origins of the Maxwell family and Robert Maxwell's connections to organized crime.
There's got to be a there. Otherwise, you wouldn't have this conspiracy of silence around it. It's pretty amazing.
The there is enormous. The there is like multiple governments and the richest people on earth, and that's why the there gets,
but I love that chorus of "there's nothing to see here." Gosh, we got here, and it turns out there really isn't anything. Bongino said it. Patel said it. Bondi said, "Believe me, if there was something here, I would tell you about it."
That's
I don't
their
believe
line
you.
now.
Yeah, that was their line when they first got in. They wanted it released. Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
I mean, they saw it already. A lot of this is already out there. Like as I said, he's been indicted, but he was indicted multiple times. And people have, confessed to the crimes or played down the crimes or said things like, "Oh, I just liked getting massaged by underage girls in my underwear." Like, that's a normal thing to say, Alan Dershowitz? Like, we know about this. It's more just, it hasn't been fleshed out in an official form with the perpetrators held accountable for the cruel, sadistic crimes that they committed. That is what has not happened. And that is what people are demanding.
It's beyond grotesque, and
Yes.
so the cover-up does exist as such. Sarah, I'm out of time with you. You know what a fan I am. I always love speaking with you, and I look forward to the next time, but I also want to mention that tech issues, last time was Sarah was on, says Angel in the Bay Area. Is this how the FCC shuts down resistance? We need the Mark Thompson Show more now. Question and then challenge authority, says Angel in the Bay Area. You're right. It's weird. I think my video today is a little sketchy. I don't know what's happened. We're going to have a full investigation. But what I was going to say is that there is under this video, there are click-throughs to all of Sarah's books and her Substack. I do recommend everything, and I look forward to the next time. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, Sarah Kendzior, everybody. Right on. Good stuff. The
Mark Thompson Show.
I blame you, Albert, for any technical problems. I don't like to do it, but I got to blame somebody, and
I blame you.
Yeah, I have to blame you.
Those around. Yeah, we're so lucky to have Sarah Kendzior. I mean, it just people in the chat thanking us for having her on every week, and I'm so grateful. Super awesome.
Sarah's fantastic. So intelligent, says Nancy.
Yeah.
Sarah, right on. Says Rev P. Well, let me tell you something. Love Sarah, love online tech support, says Harry Magnum with a $5 super chat. Thank you. You guys need to get rid of cable internet and get fiber connections. Yeah, no kidding. I want that, but this area from which this broadcast emanates, and emanates is a ding word, it does not get fiber. I ask like every day I call and go, is fiber? And no. So all I have, I've paid for the maximum upload, but the maximum upload is horrible, like the maximum upload speed. But I am hardwired in. So when we see, you know what I'm talking about, Albert and Kim, where it says your connection is unstable, that's not because of any Wi-Fi. It's because for some reason there's a lot of demand. Probably there are a bunch in the audience who know more about this than I do. That's a lot of demand on the pipe, on the internet cable. And so with my neighbors and other people and businesses all putting pressure on it, the speed of the upload is affected. So I'm very sorry about that.
Yeah, I think we should play just like a sounder, so your connection could catch up a little bit, because you're still kind of grainy right now.
Okay, let me leave and come back. I've noticed that for the last week or two, when you play the video, the audio is much lower than the mics. Other than that, the show's been pretty good, well passable. Trevor says, I don't know about that. I blame Kim on that one. I really do.
Yeah,
I don't know
totally
why Kim.
I blame you.
I don't know why Kim's an audio mess. So I'll leave. Play a sweeper. We'll get to David Katz and we will continue. Thank you, everybody. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
What he's got going here is a situation.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
Everything is going extremely well.
Call me a liar. Know what you call me? You, sir, are a liar.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Liar, your pants are on
fire.
Google told me.
Can you let him finish, sir? It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
What are the porn stars doing?
Do you have a secret talent?
Doesn't anybody better weed?
100% effective. How about that?
Say what?
And this is their new host.
There is no defense for my conduct.
I misspoke. I stand corrected. And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Time's up, mother effers.
Kim, it's just you and I for now.
Oh, just you and I. Well, that's nice. You know, I don't need Mark Thompson to welcome in the esteemed David Katz to the show, former federal prosecutor, now defense attorney, and he joins us. Mark should be along any minute, but it doesn't mean we can't go ahead and start. David Katz, everybody, welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, great to be with you guys.
Hi. Well,
Kim, always a pleasure. I always, when I see your lovely face on the podcast, I always remember that we were two faces for radio back in the day of the radio station that shall not be named. And you and I go all the way back to 2018.
That is correct. So what a treat for me to get to talk to you instead of Mark, even though I know he's coming back. He's just having some tech issues right now. But let's start with the judge, the Trump appointed judge in his first term, right, that blocked the deployment of the National Guard to Oregon. The Supreme Court has a new term coming up. I know it's a temporary blockage to the National Guard in Portland. How do you see this playing out? And can you kind of describe what happened and what's next for this case?
Well, if I were these reporters, I would certainly report that she's a Trump appointed judge. But I actually know her name is Karen Immergut. I actually know her.
Okay.
She's another graduate of the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Los Angeles, pretty much the era that I was, a little bit after the era that Adam Schiff was. And she's just a very distinguished, brilliant lawyer. She went up to Portland, and I think she was the U.S. attorney there. And then I think she also worked in the state government. And of course, you know, Oregon is two Democratic senators. If in his first term, Trump was going to appoint anybody up there, get anyone through, you know, with the system that they have, Kim, she was certainly much more palatable than some really Trumpy judge. But she is a very distinguished, very serious judge. And so I do chuckle a little bit. Yes, she is a Trump-appointed judge, but she's not the model of some of these, you know, cuckoo birds that are sitting on some of these circuits.
Sure.
So she gets this case. And, you know, it's a very serious case because he's trying to call out the National Guard. And we had this issue down in Southern California. Does there really have to be an emergency? What if there really is no emergency, as there really was not an emergency? There was one night that things got a little out of hand, and the LAPD and the local officials here would have gotten them right back in hand, did get them right back in hand.
Sure.
This was a manufactured situation that Trump was just waiting for an excuse to send the troops in here because that's what he wanted to do. And, you know, the courts get hung up on things like that because they are supposed to defer to the president. You know, who's to say how great an emergency it is? You don't want something like, you know, after Rodney King verdicts in state court where all the officers were acquitted. And we really did have riots. I mean, but certainly there has to be some way, Kim, for the courts to determine that was a real riot. And anyone would tell you so. There was acrid smoke all over. Things were burning all over town, not in one area, not one night, but night after night, burning all over town, it turned out. And, you know, we had an absolute riot situation. I still remember the tank was sitting in front of the federal courthouse, and people knew right, left, or center that that tank needed to be there. How do you distinguish that if you're a judge from what's going on in LA, let's say? And that issue got bounced around in the trial court, which ended up being in the Bay Area. That was being heard about the troops that were being brought into Los Angeles, and it went to the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit allowed it to pretty much continue. And now we're down to about 100 troops here. Nothing ever really much happened with the National Guard, and the Marines pretty much got withdrawn. So what does she do with this case up in Oregon where there seems to have been nothing. I mean, not even a night that things got out of hand. There are demonstrations at the ICE office. That's understandable. People don't like the actions of ICE, and they're peacefully protesting in Portland. And this is another manufactured situation. So she gets the case and she says, you know what? I've examined it. I have evaluated it. There has to be some measure. I'm deferring to the president. Even so, there's no there. There's no here to call out the troops and therefore the National Guard. I'm not allowing it. Trump decided to then go around her order, and instead of appealing it, even trying to get an emergency, an emergency order from the Ninth Circuit, which, as I say, had with a certain panel been receptive to the case that came from LA about the call out of the National Guard and the Marines down here in LA, rather than go to the Ninth Circuit, Trump said, you know what I'll do? I've already federalized the National Guard in California. Why don't I send the California National Guard up into Oregon? And now there's even talk about, or maybe they have actually talked about sending federal deputized National Guard from Texas into Oregon. Now, if you do something like that, we really are on the verge of a civil war. People say
the Texas National Guard has landed in Illinois. So
the idea of them going into Illinois, California, Oregon from Texas, and then what? When the Democrats get back in, we have so many tax cheats who don't pay their taxes down in Texas. We start to go after every good old boy with the IRS agents and federal troops and send the California National Guard in to roust and harass all of these Texas non-taxpayers. Can you imagine it? There's no end to it. And it really does become like a civil war, and states don't like each other, and you worry about hostile troops. In America, we have two huge oceans, right? We have friendly Mexico and Canada. We're going to start having hostile troops come into places like Oregon and California because they're from Texas or Mississippi. So she has now, I think, for the moment, stopped all of this. I think where things stand right now, Judge Immergut has not allowed any of this. And if they can't produce some new facts, like a real change in a situation like there really is a riot instead of just peaceful protests, or they get some ruling from the Ninth Circuit or take it up to the U.S. Supreme Court, I think things stand, and it's great for the rule of law that here is a courageous judge doing her job as set out in the Constitution, and we have a separation of powers, and she's saying, no, you may be the president, but you're not a king. No, the law prevents you from doing this, and you must not do this.
Before I turn it back over to Mark.
The Supreme Court, can you hear me? No?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
The Supreme Court seems inclined, as you were just kind of alluding to, David, to defer to the president and what the president wants. I mean, I hate in handicapping that. Do you feel as though the Supreme Court may give the devil his due here and let Trump just go after various cities with control over this National Guard gang to kind of move them around like chess pieces?
Until there's some precedent from the U.S. Supreme Court, Mark, that I think delineates some test for what should happen in all the states, I think for now it's going to be piecemeal and it'll go state by state. I think the U.S. Supreme Court will stay away from some of these orders on the emergency docket. Like I think this Oregon one, I just don't think this is teed up for the Supreme Court because nothing is happening in Oregon. There are peaceful protests. People hark back to the way it was when I was on with Kim during the first, the Trump administration, when things really did seem like they were getting out of hand in Portland. And they were at the federal courthouse, not only day after day, but night after night. And it seemed like the Portland authorities were sort of enjoying that, like in your face, Trump, and not reining it in ways that I think prudently they should have reined it in. But that's not happening here. That's what Trump and some of Trump's base remember, that there was this sort of free-for-all, never-ending night protests in Portland. That's not what's happening now. And so I just don't think there's any record that's going to support overturning the order and saying that basically the president can send in troops anytime the president wants. And it's clear, the Supreme Court's not stupid. It's clear that he's just waiting, like in Washington, D.C. He waited for some young aide to be out at 3 o'clock in the morning. I think we all talked about it. Nothing really good happens at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I don't know what, they tried to carjack his car. And that alone was Trump's pretext to go into Washington, D.C.
Well, that brings me to my point, David, which is that they could use anything whatsoever, even a false flag of their own concoction to make the case like, yep, you see, we're going in, and it's clearly their desire. So I guess I'm just trying to, that they're reverse engineering it just the way I am logically.
Well, Mark, the courts have been slower than Trump, and Trump by being, so impetuous, and it's been not just impetuous; it's a strategy of impetuosity. And he knows that the courts, as a chess move, he knows that he can move a lot faster than the courts can counter move. But you look at this time around, first of all, a lot of these states have lawyered up. They've gotten very good lawyers. They've gotten more lawyers. They've gotten sort of ready for Trump's depredations, and they're moving faster. You notice this Judge Immergut up in the District of Oregon, she moved really fast. She issued an order over the weekend to stop what he was planning to do, I guess, on Sunday or Monday. And she's followed up and she's issued orders quickly that he would be in contempt if he violates. That didn't quite happen with some of the earlier Trump litigation. In Illinois, I think they're already presenting this litigation. I think right now, today, they were arguing in Chicago about this. I don't know what the ruling was, but I saw about an hour ago they were arguing it still in court at that moment. And when they go into some of these other, he's backed off from going into New York City. It doesn't look like he'll go into New York City. So I think that the one that gets to the Supreme Court brought by Trump will be one with a much better record than there is in Illinois or Oregon. I think he'll wait for something that really does look more like a riot. And of course, it's just a matter of time because he's so provocative. Part of what he does is he taunts the local populace to do something, and then he uses what he's now taunted to have happen as his, causa belli, his cause for war, his cause for invasion. And so there's this awful symbiosis that he's playing, but I don't think he's going to go to the Supreme Court until he has one with a better record than Oregon or Illinois.
I mean, the back and forth that's being played out, that's got a virality now on media, is the Stephen Miller conversation saying that the president has plenary authority and can, the sort of the suggestion, plenary authority, you can explain it legally, but essentially, he's in charge. I mean, he can do what he wants. But generally, it's thought of usually in a limited area, but the idea somehow, and it very much works with the unitary executive theory, is that, no, he's in charge. He can do whatever he wants. That's the disposition of this administration, clearly. What's being, the pushback, and what's being said is, and what's being said here by you is, no, the courts are going to push back on him and limit him in his desire to move all of these troops into these various places around America.
Yeah, I think that's exactly, they have a terrible disposition, and Stephen Miller and Trump himself have said right out loud that he's an authoritarian, that he wants to push people around. What did he say the other day? It was so extraordinary. It gets lost in all the outrages day after day. But he told the military, assembled 800 top generals and admirals, that they should use our cities, and the people of our cities, our citizens, should use them as a training ground for their military tactics. And that there was an internal enemy. And obviously the idea was that the Democrats and anyone who stands up and exercises their First Amendment rights is the enemy. I mean, just absolutely extraordinary. Mussolini, on his way to power, did not give speeches this authoritarian as Trump and Miller do. So is their heart totally in the wrong place? Is their head totally not what our democracy and our rule of law are all about? Yes. But I've said this for a while. The courts really are standing up. And of course, the wild card is the U.S. Supreme Court. But you got to take it, case by case. The U.S. Supreme Court term is starting. I know they did some bad things on the emergency docket. They'll do some bad things on the regular docket. They will, I think, reverse some of the things that they did on the emergency docket when they hear the cases on the merits. But yeah, he can get a lot of mileage from these speeches. They're also making him unpopular. And I've said that even on right-leaning networks, and not gotten a lot of pushback because they've seen the polls. Trump is incredibly unpopular. He's going to try to run on this law and order thing and push this authoritarianism as far as he can. But I still think it's going to be okay, Mark. I think that that bill here is going to win, that initiative allowing us to redistrict here. And there's actually an issue that in the Supreme Court there is some balloting, write-in ballots, and some not write-in ballots. Mail-in ballots. And some issues about that would affect the vote. I think when it all shakes out, I think the Democrats win the House, and that restores a lot of order with the oversight that could then occur.
Well, Okay, maybe we're really counting on that. I mean, just to get back to the Supreme Court and the ballot thing that you're talking about, they are going to hear arguments about and around this lawsuit challenging mail-in ballots. The Supreme Court is saying that this would let candidates freely challenge state election laws. It has the potential to clear the way for a wave of legal challenges ahead of these midterm elections. And as you know, the president, and it seems as though, he's the conductor of the orchestra these days, he has very much spoken out against mail-in ballots. So during oral arguments in this lawsuit brought by Illinois Congressman Michael Bost, the justices appeared open to letting him contest this state law that allows the counting of mail-in ballots up to 14 days after voting ends, provided they were postmarked on or before Election Day. They're saying that, I think the lawsuit's saying, right, David, that shouldn't be allowed. I wonder if you can speak to that and how it might have an effect, a real-life effect on the election.
Well, the people who think that some of the U.S. Supreme Court justices, Alito, Thomas, some of those picked by Trump, that they really do not have justice in their hearts. I think they look at this case and they think, why on earth do they seem to want to make it so easy to challenge mail-in ballots? Why does the U.S. Supreme Court want to do that, including to give this one Congress member standing? Standing has always been very hard to get in these cases. If you and I say, they didn't count the vote right, and it came down to 5 votes in California, and we want to challenge this or we want to challenge that, they're pretty much going to say, no, we don't have standing. We were just hurt the way other people were hurt. We were hurt the way all voters are hurt. If we challenge our taxes, they say, no, you guys were just, or how they promulgated taxes, they say, no, you guys were just hurt by the tax code the way everyone's hurt by the tax code. You don't have that individualized, that particularized injury in fact that we're looking for to give somebody standing. And the whole idea of standing, by the way, is that people who don't have an injury in fact may have collusive lawsuits. They may not fight hard. They'll allow the issue to get decided on a collusive basis because they don't really care. They don't really have any injury in fact. And from that idea, which is, I think, pretty ethereal and abstract itself, we have all this standing law, and so many issues never get decided because nobody ever has standing, or you suddenly think a case is going to be decided that the whole country is watching, and then they dump it, there's no standing, and people think, what an off-ramp, what a cop-out. And so the fact that they've made standing so easy in this case is very perplexing unless they want to encourage a whole lot more ballot and mail-in challenges, because they've allowed a Congress member who wins by 75% of the vote.
Yeah, that's the guy who's bringing the lawsuit. Exactly. He's an odd guy to bring it.
He said, it's not enough that I win by 75%. I need to know whether I'm winning by 74 or 76. It's so important. It should change all these rules of standing that the average person just can't bring a lawsuit over mail-in ballots, but I can bring a lawsuit over mail-in ballots because it's so critical. And Alito says to the lawyer for, I guess it's the state of Illinois, anyway, whoever's arguing against this 75% ruby red Republican congressman argues against him. Well, wait a second. Why does it matter? And Alito said, well, isn't it obvious that the person who's getting the vote tally is hurt in fact when it's reported that they won 75%, when if the mail-in ballots had done differently, the person would have won by 76%, to which you say, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard from a U.S. Supreme Court justice. No, it doesn't make any difference at all. What the tally is, especially for this guy, the tally's not even decisive. Maybe the guy who's 50.1, right? But this guy seems so unlikely to have standing under normal law. It just seems like somehow the Supreme Court wants them, the majority of the Supreme Court seems to want to make it easy to challenge mail-in balloting, something that is the big hobby horse of Trump. So it looks like just another one where if it's Trump's hobby horse, his justices on the Supreme Court want to help Trump ride it.
That's why I say he's the conductor of the orchestra. And the other thing they're doing, it would seem, is that this redrawing of districts that could yield more House seats, a lot of experts are forecasting the end of the election law, which the Voting Rights Act, which would somehow, which might be the bulwark against that. And they are saying that the court may really undermine this piece of kind of a foundational legislation, or a foundational ruling, maybe is a better way to put it.
Well, this one is of great concern because even if California redistricts, and even if the other states realize that this war is not getting anywhere, Missouri then redistricts, New York then redistricts. So it's just decided that, after California, responded properly, fire with fire to what Trump and Texas tried to do, which was really a monstrosity that we have to address properly here in California. If everyone decides to stop fighting over this Voting Rights Act could still land a Republican safe house. And the reason is because the Voting Rights Act is very complicated, but it's been cut back. One of the most famous ones was the Shelby County vote. That was another one of the outrages of this Supreme Court, when they basically said there's no more racial discrimination in the South, so we don't need to have like pre-clearance of changes that have a racial impact, because that's all been taken care of. That's in our ancient history, and it's all kumbaya, and there is no discrimination against Black people anymore in the South, so we don't need to worry about it. And as soon as the U.S. Supreme Court said that in Shelby County, of course, a lot of these southern states went back to the same old Jim Crow-esque things that they did to suppress the Black vote. One reason they can't suppress the Black vote is because and the minority vote is because in the Voting Rights Act, what's still intact is these minority representation areas. And so if they were allowed to gerrymander in some of these states, they could gerrymander out just about all of the Black seats. And what stops them from doing that now is that would be in violation of the Voting Rights Act and would be racial discrimination that violates the Voting Rights Act. If it no longer violates the Voting Rights Act because the Supreme Court so decides this term, they could go through, let's say there's a Black Congress member in Birmingham, Alabama, and there's another one in Montgomery, because those are two Black areas of Alabama. They could gerrymander it in a way that there would be no Black Congress members. The Blacks would be only 35% everywhere. They would lose everywhere. And because the country is so polarized on race, especially the South, you would end up with only white Congress members from Alabama, whereas now there are two, and the Voting Rights Act wouldn't prevent that. That would tip a lot of those southern states, maybe 10, 15, 20 more members to white Republicans. They say that 30% of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus would be wiped out if they get rid of the Voting Rights Act, and if the southern states respond that way. That is a major, major thing that the U.S. Supreme Court could decide in this one case that's coming up this term. They could eliminate by their ruling 30% of the members of the Black Congressional Caucus. Big deal. As Biden used to say, big effing deal.
They could draw 19 more seats, and you may say, well, can't the blue states do the same thing, kind of the way California's answering Texas? Yeah, but as you just heard David say, you can redraw it, but you have fewer opportunities in blue states to redraw the way they can aggressively redraw in some of these other places to which David's referred. And at the end of all of that, having done the arithmetic, you get almost 20 seats that go to the GOP. So it's a pretty grim scenario. Now, my understanding is it likely won't be ruled upon by the Supreme Court before the midterms right now, but it also might be. Like they could fast track that. But from what I was understanding and reading, it likely wouldn't make a midterm deadline.
There's probably enough administrative things that a state would have to do. If they decide in September, you can't have the early November election done under a September, well, they don't sit in September. I mean, they have to decide all their cases by the end of June, Mark. So if they decided it in May or June, I guess the question would be state by state, could a state actually redraw the line in that time? There'd be some, you don't know the decisions coming exactly. So would Congress members be ready to run for re-election? Would challengers come along? So you're probably right. In most states, it would not affect the midterms. But certainly it would be teed up to affect all of the elections in 2028 if the Supreme Court rules that way. Not entirely clear they're going to do that. This is a kind of, I think, too close to call. Although I want to say something about your ruling on the tariffs before I forget. Okay, not only you and I agree to disagree on that, and guess who's on your side? The Economist and the Economist magazine's robot, They have actually thought it was worthwhile. This is so important. Tariffs, free trade. To The Economist, there is an economist bot, and the economist bot agrees with you. Your Mr. Predicto may agree with you. I don't know, Mark. Looks like 3-1 against me. You, the economist robot, and the and Mr. Predicto. So
where's
3-1.
my Economist? I subscribe to The Economist.
3-1.
We didn't ask Mr. Predicto. Let me just ask Mr. Predicto right now. Mr. Predicto, will the Supreme Court rule that the Trump tariffs are illegal? Will the Supreme Court rule that the Trump tariffs are illegal, Mr. Predicto? Let me just ask.
Definitely, yes.
Wow, that's one for you then, David Katz.
Okay.
Mr. Predicto thinks he'll be. Mr. Predicto thinks SCOTUS will overrule the president's tariff on the tariff. Well, we'll see. I don't know.
Don't anybody bet on this. I'm sure you could. There's action on this, like there's action on anything. But do not go in there and say Mr. Predicto and Katz. Said
but if you are keeping score, Mr. Predicto and Katz believe SCOTUS will rule to overthrow the tariffs. I believe
take Mark Thompson and the smart money with The Economist.
All right, now let me ask you quickly about James Comey. Surprisingly, he pled not guilty.
What?
This is a clown show of the first order. I mean, this is the crew that brought the case. Insurance lawyer leading things, got rid of the last guy who was a Republican, died in the wool GOP guy. She's, as I say, an insurance lawyer, never tried a case before, didn't have even the case laid out in any kind of a reasonable fashion. Apparently, like all the I's weren't dotted and T's weren't crossed, quite literally. It's this slapdash team of legal assistants who have kind of show up in court. I mean, it's really a bad look, but Trump just wants to play the moment. Comey, in my judgment, Comey charged, Comey has to plead, Comey has to do all that humiliating stuff that Donald Trump, had to do also.
Yeah, that's a very large part of it. It's pure revenge. It's pure that, and it's not the fact that the cases were righteous against Trump, that they were well researched, that the law and the facts supported them. Like every bully, he just wants to have his way. He never stops to think, you know what? Maybe I should step back and say they had good cause. I was very lucky. Things worked out my way. The U.S. Supreme Court worked out my way. A lot of things worked out my way. 6 justices on the U.S. Supreme Court were the main thing that worked out my way. And I was fortunate. Why don't we rule the country? Why don't we govern the country in a rational way? Why don't I be remembered in history by something other than being a vengeful little bully? Well, he wants to be a vengeful little bully. That's really what makes him tick, and that's what he's doing right here. Now, the Comey thing is a really interesting situation. Mark, this is what I am. I'm a federal criminal defense attorney. Never represented a former FBI director. Obviously, no former FBI director has ever been charged, or so far as I know, criminally investigated. But there's a 70-day Speedy Trial Act. And he could force this case to go to trial in 70 days, whether the government is ready to go, whether they've done things within that timeline that they have to do. That would be held against them. Like if they can't produce discovery to him, that would be a discovery violation. And if they kept saying, we need more time, we need more time. A couple of things. First of all, don't indict a case if you're not ready to meet your discovery and all of your other obligations. Well, we wanted to meet the statute of limitations. Well, start earlier. I mean, you got to remember, if they were going to have this vendetta against Comey, it didn't just happen the day before. If they were going to do this vendetta, they were going to do this vendetta probably since November. That's been their plan. They need to prepare. So it would not be, the government would not be heard to defend itself. In other words, a judge would not accept the argument that they weren't ready. One of Comey's things is if he really wants to push the case to trial within 70 days, though, and take advantage of probably all the discovery lapses and all the things that the government's done wrong procedurally, he's got to make a motion. And if you make a motion, you stop the clock. So this Speedy Trial Act clock that runs for 70 days, while motions are pending, it stops. So if he makes his motion to dismiss for vindictive prosecution or for selective prosecution, they're slightly different, or for the grand jury abuse, or for the mistakes that were made in how it was presented technically. So the case should be dismissed technically, because technically the indictment's not correctly worded or correctly signed. He's got to stop the clock. And I think that's one of the things that his very good lawyers are deciding what to do. And it may be that I think at the end of the day, I said this last week, nobody really wants to go to trial. I mean, there could be 2 jurors who find him guilty, even a hung jury. You imagine how Trump would trumpet that if any one of the members of the jury. And then they started with Washington, D.C. It was so biased against me, Trump. But even the biased D.C., voted him guilty. All you'd hear about is the 2 or 3 people who voted him guilty, not about the 9 or 10. Then they get to have a retrial of Comey. So I think Comey and his lawyers have to think all of that through. And on balance, they file the motions. They stop the clock and they file the motions that he was selectively prosecuted. That's, I think, very, very clear from the record. And this whole public thing, we talked about this last week, but I think it bears repeating again. If all he wanted to do, Trump, was to get one particular enemy indicted, and that's very scary under the Constitution. That's very scary under the rule of law. But how would a really, forceful president, how would LBJ, let's say, have done that? LBJ would have, or take the worst case scenario, take Kennedy. How would Kennedy have gotten his brother, the attorney general, to have indicted somebody that was a political enemy of Kennedy? And there's no evidence that this ever happened. This is purely a hypothetical. He'd whisper in Bobby's ear, and Bobby would indict that person. There'd be no record. What would you show that it was vindictive? Or that's not what happened here. What happened here was that Trump sent a tweet or an X out to the world so that tens of millions of people, the whole world, would know that the reason Comey was getting indicted was not on account of the evidence, not on account of Bondi's discretion, but because he ordered it in capital letters in a public message. Indict this guy. Time is running out. Do it now. And the reason for that was intimidation. Let me just say this. Let me finish my point. The reason was intimidation. The reason was to show that I'll get you. Okay. I'll make it that public that I'll get you. And we've never really had kind of a situation like that in the courts against such a high profile enemy. That may make new law. There may be something after this, which is not called selective prosecution, not called vindictive prosecution, but Comey-esque. And the combination of things, they just may say that this sequence of events, if you can show that anything similar like that happened, then you'll get relief in the future. And why that's important is because he plans to have things like this happen in the future. He plans to have this happen to New York State Attorney General Letitia James. In his awful nightmarish fantasies, he imagines this happening to Senator Adam Schiff. And they will have, I think, after this case, a motion that they won't have to even fear prosecution. They will have a Comey motion, which will, I think, be able to pretty much quash these bad faith investigations or bad faith attempts to indict them.
Well, Kim was telling me that public proclamation that you described was actually intended to be a DM. Didn't you say that, Kim? You thought that that there was corroborative. You were talking to me about that earlier today. Mm-hmm. That I'd always heard that it was thought to have been a DM that ended up public. The go after Comey, go after Schiff, time's running out, that one. But right. You were saying to me earlier that that it was essentially offered. There's increasing evidence offered to suggest that was supposed to be a DM.
Supposedly, according to sources, it's been confirmed that that was a mistake on the president's part, that his big Truth Social post about directly to Pam Bondi about all the people that she needs to go after and how it's making him look and how they need to get it done now was not intended for public consumption. It was supposed to be private to her.
Regardless, it wouldn't affect it legally, would it, David?
I don't think it would affect it legally. I mean, the people who are astonished by how incompetent Trump's people are, that would be just another, that would be like the one, right, the chat that
on the Signal chat,
the Yemenis before
it's
they
amazing that they're
Yemenis.
Talking over public media anyway. It's crazy to me that everything, official pronouncements of every sort are supposed to be on the X platform. Are you kidding? I mean, the whole thing is lunacy to me.
That's like the Durst thing. Remember? The Durst case.
Sure.
What was that thing
the
called?
murder case.
Yeah. Where, he didn't know the thing is live. And so he says to the world, I mean, I guess that's what was it? I killed whatever.
Of course I did it, is what he said. Yeah.
This would be, of course I did it. This would be, wow, I meant to say this secretly, and I said it to the whole world. I mean, Trump. He seems to live everything down. But I've only said this for 7 years to Kim. Kim, you've heard this before. His luck will soon run out.
All right. So I wanted to ask you about something that to me is kind of bizarre, and nothing to do with Comey, nothing to do with voting, etc. Nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the real surge, I think, in a growing theocracy, I believe, that is taking a hold in America. But that's the broader question. The Supreme Court and legal question is about this conversion therapy. It's for minors, those who, they go into these conversion therapy programs because they're gay, they have gay instincts, etc., and their parents, their family exact some, psychological, I would think, effect on them to the point that they feel and they compel them to go into this conversion therapy. So there's a ban on this stuff, right? And in Colorado, you can't do that. You can't put your kid in conversion therapy. Now the Supreme Court is hearing a case about it, and the Supreme Court is inclined, from what I'm reading, to allow it, to overturn that law that's in Colorado banning it.
I won't even score a Katz on this because the argument was so clear that a majority of the U.S. Supreme Court is going to vote against Colorado. And the way that this comes about, and I don't know, you have some young listeners who may not really know about this, but the idea was that if you showed homosexual tendencies, you would be sent to a counselor, and they'd show you like pictures of beautiful women or something like that, and say, "See, you should be a heterosexual." And they would do, worse things than that. They would do all these therapeutic techniques, supposedly. And so these states, there's 27 states, they're predominantly the blue states, said, no, you cannot have this kind of conversion therapy because it's more than showing pictures of beautiful women.
No, they beat kids. They wrap them up in carpet and beat them with there's a physical violence part to all of this, at least historically, and recent history too.
Yeah, so a licensed in those 27 states and Colorado, a licensed therapist would lose their license if they engage in any of that conversion therapy, all the way from what you say physical assaults to talk therapy. Talk therapy that tries to talk somebody out of being a homosexual or out of wanting, let's say, a trans procedure, something like that. And so it's attacked on the argument that it's banning free speech. There's no friend of free speech, supposedly, more than the Trump administration and their officials and their lawyers. So isn't that a terrible violation of free speech by the licensed therapist that they would lose their license if they talked in that way? And the U.S. Supreme Court is going to say, yes, that would be a terrible violation of their free speech rights if the state stopped them by challenging their licensure by giving that sort of talk therapy. Of course, the other side of it is that it's treatment. It's not talk. It's not First Amendment. And that the states all ban kinds of treatment. There's loads of treatments that a doctor might think, a wacky doctor might want to give you, or an edgy therapist might want to give you, that are illegal. That the state, they don't allow you to, if you have an infection, they don't allow you to be bled, like in the Middle Ages. There's loads and loads of treatments that they don't allow to be given. And so the dissenters are going to say, this is more like treatment that the states have a right to regulate. The fact that there be some small element of talk in it is not the point. And the conservatives will win, and the majority of them will say that this is talk that is being suppressed and not allowed by the state.
It's outrageous. It's crazy. Like someone could talk you out of or beat you out of being a straight man, out of being
it's
hetero.
Awful.
It's crazy.
It's just awful.
Johnson & Johnson ordered to pay $966 million. This, again, is the Johnson & Johnson talc powder that I thought they'd ruled on this over and over again. They have tied this talcum powder to mesothelioma, and this rare cancer, but there has been an absolute connection between this Johnson & Johnson product and the family of this California woman who died from this rare aggressive cancer, they won the lawsuit, and now an LA jury is ordering them, Johnson & Johnson, to pay that almost $1 billion to the family.
Well, there's an attorney in Los Angeles. His name is Bart Williams, and he's represented Johnson & Johnson for years. Actually had some successes, but it looks like the days of Johnson & Johnson winning these talc cases is really coming to an end. They've actually tried to go to the bankruptcy court several times, you know, the way that the who are the people with the opioid?
Like the Rudy Giuliani move? Yeah.
Well, no, more like the opioid people. Remember the
Sure,
opioid people, that family?
The Sackler family? Yeah.
Yes, the Sackler family. They've tried to see if they could, you know, resolve this in bankruptcy. Johnson & Johnson has done that little trick where they have a subsidiary, and the subsidiary goes bankrupt with all the bad claims, and they try to save the company that doesn't go bankrupt. I think Johnson & Johnson has pretty much stopped marketing the talc. You know, check me on that. Because it's generated so many lawsuits. What's going to happen to this particular judgment for $960 million? This is for one plaintiff who died, and she got, I think, about 40 or 50 million in compensatory damages, maybe less, but over $900 million is punitive damages. I think the U.S. Supreme Court, if it goes that far, will overturn that, whether people like that or not. That's considered cruel and unusual punishment or excessive fines. Barred by the 8th Amendment. And when there's a huge disproportion between the compensatory damages and then the punitive damages, they cut back the punitive damages. So no, either the trial judge or some appellate court will not let the plaintiffs and their lawyers walk away with over $900 million, but they will get a big chunk of change. And there's loads of these plaintiffs around. You know, the argument is that there's asbestos in with the talc. Johnson & Johnson's side of it is that no, they separate it out, that they have purity procedures, but there are some internal memos that the plaintiff's bar has managed to get out of Johnson & Johnson over the years, dating back to 1971, and expressing in these internal memos, Mark, concern that there was indeed a great deal of asbestos and asbestos exposure.
That's the thing. It's asbestos. Exactly. Right. Yeah. It reminds me, the verdict and the judgment, of a movie that I know you saw, because I can't imagine someone who is steeped in the law as you are would not have seen it. And that is the Paul Newman movie, The Verdict. Yeah. So in The Verdict, spoiler alert, I think it came out in the 80s, he plays this lawyer, and it's a great role. He won the Academy Award for it, I think. So, but they get to the case, and it's everybody, you know, with the expert witnesses and, you know, everybody. And then they find this surprise witness, this nurse who's reluctant, who wants to testify, and she does testify. And of course, it's damning, and these big, bad corporate, you know, think the Johnson & Johnson kind of people are finally. It was a malpractice case, though, but the equivalent with this doctor in this group. And the jury comes in, and they rule for Paul Newman and his client, and against this horrible doctor who covered up, you know, the bad thing that he did, etc. But this is the part that I know you'll remember, and it made me think of it when I saw this judgment of close to $1 billion against Johnson & Johnson. The judge asks, "Is this your verdict?" And the foreman says yes. And then the foreman says, "Are we limited, Your Honor, in the penalty that we can apply to the doctor?" And, you know, there's that moment. I'm sure it's just a movie moment, but it's really great because the judge goes, no, you're not limited to the, you know, to 17 million. In that case, Your Honor, we believe that the defendant should pay $100 million or whatever it was. It was like this. Oh, the damning of a guilty verdict was actually doubled by the damning of the judgment, the civil case as it went. So it reminded me of this with the Johnson & Johnson thing, because the amount of money is so immense that it suggests that there was real, you know, you guys knew that this stuff was causing cancer, and you still allowed it to go out onto the market, and you even marketed it as safe.
Well, I read somewhere that they have a reserve of $7 billion, Johnson & Johnson does. And again, they're trying to somehow discharge all of these claims in bankruptcy and sort of emerge on the other end. But, at this rate, I mean, even if this gets cut back, it will get cut back, Mark. But let's say it gets cut back to $100 million. Okay, so how far does $7 billion take you if you have a bunch of $100 million judgments, if you have a bunch of $50 million judgments? And there's you can see the other side of it. Company, maybe some people don't see the other side of it, but at least companies that are doing like Johnson & Johnson, if the entire company went down and all of its products went down with it, and there are some other very good products. There is an idea, and certainly the conservative U.S. Supreme Court has it, that it at some point does become an excessive fine, $1 billion verdict for one person, where 950 million of it or 900 million of it is punitive. The Supreme Court will strike this down, and people who, the Constitution does have this provision that excessive fines shall not be imposed, and I think that's a fairly good argument, just textually and so forth, that $1 billion punitive damage awards, even if there are internal memos, even if the jury comes away thinking, boy, do we want to punish these people. We do have the criminal law for that. If somebody knowingly puts a bad product on the market, the idea that no one should be, we kind of had this, we even had this under President Obama. He was very sharply criticized from the left for this. It seemed like no corporate executives ever got prosecuted. They had a deferred prosecution agreement. They paid a whole bunch of money if they were Johnson & Johnson. I mean, if there were some executives at Johnson & Johnson who knew about this, right?
Executives never pay a price. The 08 executives, everybody, banking executives, Wall Street, they never pay a price. We all know that. And I'm getting the blowback now, David Katz. I need a lawyer now. Rick S. says, Mark likes giving away these movie endings. It was in the 80s, dude. If you haven't seen it, I mean, there's a statute of limitations on giving away endings. It's Paul Newman. What do you think he got? He got a verdict against him? He's the star of the movie. My God, this is
why he's down on his luck. Isn't that the one where he's down on his luck?
It's great. You should see it. It's got nothing to do with the. First of all, there's a great twist, and secondly, it's got nothing to do with the. What's going to happen. Somehow he's going to prevail, just the same way that somehow Superman always gets out of whatever. But I'm just saying that getting there, as you say, he's a down on his luck lawyer. He's drinker. It was one of his best roles. I think he won the Academy Award for it. So, all right, look, I love knocking around the schoolyard with you. Thank you for this, David Katz. We'll look for you on everything from News Nation to Fox News Channel to CBS television and radio. I don't see how you get any client work in with all this stuff you're doing.
I'm supposed to be doing News Nation on at 4 o'clock Eastern time. I guess that's 1 o'clock. It's one of those times.
Look at everybody on the East Coast. Look for him at 4 o'clock and 1 o'clock on the West.
No, at 4 o'clock on the West Coast. 4 o'clock on the West Coast.
No,
and that's on Saturday.
Okay.
And in terms of getting other work done, I'm a working lawyer, but I've always loved following the Supreme Court and what they call the advance sheets. And it's great to share them with you because this is I think it's fascinating. And you look at how much the fate of the nation depends on the rule of law, depends on what these courts do right now. And so to me, I love the baseball, I love the playoffs, but to me, this is fascinating and
wildly important.
About a greater impact.
Wildly important. Yeah.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
Okay. All right, David. Thank you. Appreciate
My
you.
pleasure. Take care, guys.
The great David Katz, everybody. Bye-bye.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I don't know. I'll tell you, Albert, the technical stuff just bums me out. I don't know what to do. I've done everything. I actually connected on a different. Is it still bad?
No, it's the end of the show, and you look and sound fantastic.
No, thank
You're
you.
crystal clear.
Kim is very popular. I mean, very positive.
Look at you.
That's really cool. So
We
I don't
could
know.
have used it earlier.
Yeah, I don't
We'll
know.
take it now. It's all right.
Yeah, I don't know. It just really bums me out. So I'll continue to, I guess, join on this browser, which might be easier for tomorrow. I don't know. We work so hard to get these shows together for you guys, and then get KO'd by some by technical crap, and I just can't. And I can't get that fiber into my neighborhood. It doesn't exist. And believe me, I'd pay for a lot. I'd pay to try to get this clean, man. But
Yeah, it happens.
anyway, blah, 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 blah. Let me look at some comments and see what else people are angry about. And I'll
The Mark Thompson Show.
finish the show out that way. Go ahead and put up a comment if there's anything I need to attend to.
Well, I will tell you that I don't know if you saw this Eric Swalwell story.
Oh, that he thinks that the Epstein files are about to
He
hatch?
says it's a bomb. He put out this post on X and he says, "It's coming to an end, guys. I've spoken to a lot of House Republicans this week and they've confided Trump's movement support is fading. As one told me, this Epstein bomb is about to drop and no one wants to defend a pedo protector. It's just a matter of time."
Wow.
I've never seen anything like it.
I don't know, man. I'll believe it when I see it. I don't really, I really just, there are too many forces at play here that I think will prevent it.
It could be one of these things where Swalwell's just trying to get under Trump's skin again. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be.
What he's got going here is a situation.
It could be a situation, maybe not.
Yeah.
The Trumpstein files,
Yeah.
could be. I don't know. We don't mind some technical issues. The show and guest are too important. Thank you. We need more of the surface spins. I need more of the surface spin. I need that in my head. I get really bummed out by the technical stuff. If they release the Epstein files, the fires will begin immediately. Yeah, that may be. I mean, the distractions will start. Vilma Devlin says, "I'm happy with the ceasefire in Gaza. I'll give Trump his due. But it's hard to feel happy when there are troops being deployed to American citizens." Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, I'm not saying you should be happy. I'm saying you should be happy with sort of stopping the bleeding of the moment in Gaza. But yeah, I completely agree. I mean, that happiness can be outdone by other kind of dark shadows that eclipse it. Karen, thank you for a $10 super chat.
Big shout out.
Super sticker, I should say. $10 super sticker from Karen Kleiner. "I meant to ask a question with my super chat, and I always screw up," says Karen Kleiner. "I wanted to know if she has read the book Day by Day by Simone de Beauvoir. We can ask, I assume the she, you mean, is Sarah. We will ask next time if Kim remembers. I'm going to hope that she remembers. Sarah spells it out so clearly," says Mike. Absolutely right. 1990, says West Theory, "there was a shutdown on payday when I was in the Army. It was only 3 days, but the banks fronted the money for military members' direct deposits." Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, this appears to be a far more lengthy shutdown. I think both sides are kind of doing political calculus, and both sides are figuring we're winning the political battle. They're polling. They're doing a number of things that would suggest that it might last longer. CBD celebrating the birth of my granddaughter. Wow.
Yay.
A $25 super chat in which CBD goes on to say, "Heartfelt thanks to everyone in the chat who sent well wishes and congratulations. I feel love today, as you should. CBD, wow.
Girl, you just woo.
It is pretty exceptional
Congratulations.
to have a granddaughter. I
Yeah.
think that is just a great, great moment. Wow, I'd be in absolute tears with joy. Reminder, everyone, says Dan, the Nikki Maduro show today at 5. Oh, is today the two drunk girls talk about the news?
It's today, yeah.
That's
You
what
want
that
would you
effing
like to
show's-
come join and have a cocktail?
I'd like to, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I have time. You know, my life's
You
just
have
miserable.
time for your friends?
We have a, believe it or not, this is
Crazy.
crazy. I have a 5:30 dinner reservation. Like, why does anybody eat at 5:30?
Because you're old now?
So no, that's the thing. We don't want to, I'm a late, I'd rather
special?
eat at 9 and you know,
Oh.
and have it kind of slide into like midnight. There's just a certain, when you're going to go out to dinner, that kind of late night thing. But I also understand it's great to get dinner out of the way early, but 5:30 is early. So anyway, these people that we're going to dinner with, the wife, likes to eat really early, and so she wags the dog, and so we're going at 5:30. But it's supposed to be an amazing. It's a Michelin chef who's doing a vegan meal, which is pretty exciting. So we're all excited about that.
What?
Anyway, that's a long answer to
That's
the reason
exciting.
I will not be able to join you.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
I think there might be some alcohol.
Gene says,
Fantastic.
All right.
don't even bother. You're just going to be hungry again at 9, she says.
Ain't it true? Ain't
Yeah.
it true? When you're right, you're right. I don't know. I've loved today. Congratulations on the birth of your granddaughter, CBD.
Yeah.
I will be eating at the exact same time as Mark, only hundreds of miles away. Well, let it always be. We have our parallel lives. Champagne wishes.
A lot of people
Thank
worried
you,
about
Mark,
you
Kim, and
parking.
Albert. Great show as always. No parking problem. Nancy, thank you for that. She's the one who said great show, but I'm going to leave it all to you now, the posts. Tomorrow is Friday. I don't know. I think I'm just checking in from Scott Rittenberg with a super chat. He says, are we ready to start the mobile studio fund yet? We're ready to start another studio fund, for real. We need to raise about $2 million for a custom provost coach like all the other multimedia moguls.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
You raise the money, I'll show up in the coach.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
But for now, see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.